speaking.
A lot of today's speaking, if a number of presentations are very critical.
Well, we were on campus.
We had 9 quarters. We had 2 English classes. Writing. And you want to know what that's about, you start to read. And you find out it's a beautiful day in April and the sun was shining. You get down 3/4 of the way through there, and then there's a little thing about it.
I want to make 1 or 2 announcements here to begin with. If you've read Tri-State University, I didn't graduate in mechanical engineering, I graduated in civil engineering. And I was the first person employed at this university as a full-time laboratory instructor in the civil engineering department. Some people say I laid the campus out in the beginning, but I came along a little later. I laid out the Fawick building after I came here as an employee. All of these concrete blocks that went into that building were made right here on the campus by students. Maybe some of you did that. There was a program they called the NYA, National Youth Association. They provided 35 cents an hour to the students. They didn't get the money to put in their pocket, but that went on their tuition as credit. So I know a little bit about that building. The brick masons or stone masons had me to come out every couple of days, check their elevations, see if they were going all right. That's enough of that, and I'll pray for you, and then you can leave. Our gracious Heavenly Father, we come into your presence this day, thanking you for the many blessings of life, thanking you especially for the occasion that brings us together here as friends of Tri-State University, which has been my home for 60-some years. Thank you for that. We will not forget to thank you for the food that we will eat. We ask that you would bless that food to our use, bless us to your service, and give us the strength we need to do your will, and we thank you for it. Amen.
I remember them pouring those cement blocks that built that old solid building.
Really?
There's 3 men around here that taught classes and took care of making sure that building was built.
Knowing that his name lives on. And today it's my mission to give you some insight about the man behind the name. Who was he, and what did his life symbolize that it should stand as a model to current and future generations of students here at Tri-State University? On one hand, Tom Fawick was a highly successful businessman who achieved many of his goals the old-fashioned way, with blood, sweat, and toil. But he was also a man blessed with extraordinary gifts, pure mechanical genius, far-reaching vision, and a keenly developed sense of clairvoyance. These, rather than the slide rule, which he never used, were the tools of his trade. Innate faculties that he, regrettably, in my view, failed to pass on to his progeny. In his 88 years on our fair planet, a few normal events did occur in his life. Born in Sioux Falls, South Dakota in 1889, Tom was the second of 5 children whose parents immigrated from Norway in hopes of prospering in the new land. He had barely finished the 7th grade in that prairie town when he was overcome by the desire to strike out on his own. It was an exciting time in America. Ford was banking gold from the Tin Lizzie, and thanks to Edison, it was lights out for the candle makers. The country was shifting gears, and you could say that young Tom was psyched. So much so that as he was walking home one day, contemplating just how to break the news to his parents of his decision to quit school, Tom's consciousness was suddenly transported through the gulf of time as he envisioned a scene of things to come. Instead of the dusty lane he was traveling by, he saw a strange new ribbon of asphalt winding toward the horizon. Then a gleaming car with 4 doors that seemed totally enclosed, unlike the open touring cars of the day, raced by at an incredible speed. The vision went on, ultimately inspiring this 14-year-old to conclude that not only had he been witness to the future, but that he was destined to dedicate his life's work to automotive and mechanical engineering. By age 17, in 1907, he had built his first car and manufactured a total of 5 under the name Fawick Flyer. Of particular note was one designed with 4 doors, the very first of its kind in America. The same auto gained further notoriety when in 1910 it was paraded out to transport President Teddy Roosevelt during a lively campaign stop in Sioux Falls. By his mid-20s, Tom's career had outgrown the business environment of his hometown. Bidding farewell to family and friends, Tom, with wife Marie and baby Dorothy, who was my mother, loaded up the Flyer and departed for Waterloo, Iowa, where the budding innovator was to make several major contributions to the evolution of tractor design. In brief, his radical, lightweight model doubled the vehicle speed, employed a newly designed disc-type clutch, and perhaps most significantly, cut production costs by half. One eager customer, the British government, desperately working to boost domestic food supplies during World War I, immediately placed an order for 900 of the newly improved Fawick tractors. Another enthusiast was an acquaintance by the name of Henry Ford, whose tractor company went on to employ the lightweight Fawick configuration. Also around the year 1920, another Fawick invention, the overdrive gear, gained acceptance with manufacturers, securing its place in automotive history. And still some years later, Chrysler was to purchase his patent for motor mounts, a cushioning device installed between the motor and the chassis designed to absorb vibration. And approaching his 30th year, and now proud papa of his second daughter, Florence, Grandfather Fawick was looking to establish some degree of financial security for his family. He had perfected his heavy-duty tractor clutch and was now set to initiate production. The business which he founded was the Twin Disc Clutch Company of Racine, Wisconsin. With a long and successful history, shares of the company are to this day actively traded on the New York Stock Exchange. Last quote was 33, up a half. The years went by as Tom endeavored to make Twin Disc a prosperous concern. But his career was about to soar to the next plateau as World War II demanded overnight solutions to deal with the adversary. General Motors was under contract with the U.S. Navy to build motors for amphibious craft, a secret design to be used in the Normandy invasion. But GM had a problem. There was no clutch on the market strong enough to be used with their 2,000 horsepower engine, and their in-house engineers were unable to solve the puzzle. A GM vice president who was aware of Fawick's expertise in clutch design called him for assistance. And Tom, being enthusiastic about the opportunity to help Uncle Sam, was was then to develop a clutch that was shortly thereafter delivered to GM's proving lab. As the product endured the rigorous testing phase, a nervous and sometimes skeptical group of General Motors and Navy observers looked on. In the end, it was good news for America and her allies, as the clutch was installed along with other Fawick inventions on thousands of diesel-powered vessels, including destroyers, PT boats, landing craft, and freighters, for example. In 1945, Thomas Fawick was awarded the coveted Army-Navy E for Excellence Award for his contribution to the nation's war effort. During this period, he established the Fawick Corporation, a prosperous and technologically progressive company that he would head until a 1968 merger with Eaton Corporation, also of Cleveland, Ohio. The 40s were one of the most productive decades for my grandfather, who in his lifetime developed more than 250 patents. One particularly successful invention from a commercial perspective, and perhaps of interest to Tri-State's golf management program, was the composition golf grip, which he manufactured under the name Golf Pride. At the time he sold the company, also to Eaton, the grip was the world's best seller, and today it still retains its #1 ranking. Tom Fawick, now retired from the corporate world and in his golden years, was free to focus on his secret passions in life, music and the arts. My granddad used to tell us back when he was just a boy, he would amuse himself playing a rickety old violin that cost him 10 hard-earned dollars. Well, now with sufficient wealth, he had acquired 2 Stradivarius violins, but wasn't completely satisfied with every characteristic of these highly treasured instruments. Thus, at 79 years of age and still full of vitality, Fawick sought to develop a violin that had the exquisite sound of the Strads, but would be resistant to fluctuations in temperature and humidity. What came to be was an inspiration that won praises from the greatest violinists of the day, including Jascha Heifetz and Heinrich Schering. In a tribute to this Renaissance man and his creative works, the famed Cleveland Orchestra produced a special concert using only Fawick-crafted violins, violas, and cellos. As a footnote, one selection in the performance highlighted yet another facet of Tom Fawick's fertile imagination, musical composition, nearly 3,000 pieces in all. Still focused on instrumentation, Fawick ventured to make refinements to the basic 400-year-old design of the bow. The inventor-musician was playing the violin in his kitchen one evening and noticed a bit of difficulty working through some of the faster passages. It would surprise no one who knew him that at 10 p.m. he retreated to his workshop, pursuing the possibilities through the night. By morning, the results were in. A bow that was heralded by the finest performers as one that produced a clearer and richer sound, allowing the skilled violinist to play the short staccato notes with the utmost clarity. At 82, the tireless genius pushed ahead, seeking further improvements to not only instruments, but the very way we hear the reproduction of sound. At Marbletown, Fawick's new loudspeaker company, units were produced with design features conceived to compensate for the vagaries of weather and for acoustics. His systems garnered accolades and were installed in hotels, churches, auditoriums, and that that renowned crater from antiquity, the Cleveland Stadium. Over the decades, Tom Fawick traveled extensively, having opened Fawick Japan in the 50s and visiting sales reps on several other continents. While abroad, he would faithfully follow a pattern that involved two activities. First, he would send a colorful postcard from some exotic land to the grandchildren. And second, collect art, which he did with unbridled passion. By 1970, he finally had time to uncrate and display the 10,000 or so objects that had been in storage for so many years. With the renovation of a site on Cleveland's west side, Tom could now open to family and friends what Christie's, the auction house, termed the world's most private museum. When I visited, my grandfather would enthusiastically assume the role of docent, recounting endless stories as we seem to leave this world behind, strolling for hours from room to room. But as we entered the last room of the museum, an almost boyish sense of pride and satisfaction seemed to radiate brightly from this elderly gentleman. For we're now admiring, each with our own understanding, the original 1906 Fawick flyer. At that moment, one could see that 64 years after Tom's boyhood vision of the automobile, the flyer did indeed symbolize what was to be an exceptionally bountiful journey that was now coming full circle for this great man. In closing, I wish to thank you again for allowing me this opportunity to provide a thumbnail sketch of my grandfather's life and career. I frequently ask myself, were he alive today, where would his considerable powers of attention be focused? One thing's for sure, today's world bears scant resemblance to those earlier decades in which Tom Fawick's career flourished. Would he excel in these times? I have absolutely no doubt, and yet I'm convinced that even with my grandfather's innate abilities, had he quit school in the 7th grade today, much of his tremendous potential would not have been realized. It's true that genius knows no bounds, but the knowledge curve is moving at warp speed beyond our grasp, making the need for a superior education all the more essential. Finally, I'd like to end with a thought that I believe encapsulates my grandfather's philosophy of education. Learn by working with your hands and use your own ideas, but do so along with the powerful tools of tomorrow that you now have at your avail, just through the doors of the Thomas L. Fawick Hall of Engineering. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Steadman. I think that certainly us, all of us at Tri-State are very lucky that we found you, whoever was the super sleuth. And thanks for sharing those stories about your grandfather. Certainly, it means a lot to all of us in the engineering school, I think. Now with remarks from the Board of Trustees, is our current chairman of the board, Dr. Gary Ray.
Thank goodness this comes down. Thank you, Tom. And thank you, Chuck and Donna, for being here today, and especially thank you for sharing many of the highlights of your grandfather. It is truly impressive. That's a tough act to follow. I am certainly pleased to welcome all of you to this rededication of the Fawick Hall of Engineering today. And as Tom had mentioned earlier, we're blessed with many, many friends and of University. In addition to Dr. Reynolds and his wife, Carol, and as I just mentioned, Chuck and Donna Steadman, we have many of the faculty here, students, alumni, members of the community, friends of the university, and several of our trustees to whom we owe a special thank you. Without them, this day simply would not have been possible. To more appropriately recognize them, I would like to introduce each of the trustees who are here today. And if you would, just hold your applause until the end, and as I call your name, if you would stand up, I would appreciate it. And there are a couple that aren't here, so I have the list of names and we'll see how this works. Mr. Larry Frantz, I know he's here. Larry is our current Vice Chairman of the Board and Chairman of the Executive Committee. Dr. Paul Kalenbeck, Chairman Emeritus. Dr. William Gettig, Chairman Emeritus, and his lovely wife, Louine. And I believe Dr. Martha Conrad is in town, but I'm not sure. I do not believe that she was able to make it. She had every intention of being here. Certainly an outstanding lady and an emeritus trustee. Oh, here she comes. Here comes Martha. Dr. Joe Tiagno was supposed to be here, and his lovely wife, Nancy. Mr. Earl McNaughton. Mr. Robert Turner and his lovely wife, Mary. And Mr. Richard Oder. Thank you. I know there's always a risk of missing someone when you do that, but I think I got to all of them. To help put into perspective the role the trustees played in this rededication, allow me to share just a couple aspects of our current capital campaign. A little over 2.5 years ago, we started a $14 million capital campaign, and to date, we have raised over $12 million, of which the trustees have contributed roughly 30% of that total. Hi, Martha. Okay. It's good to have you with us, Martha. And as I mentioned, of the $12 million raised so far, of the $14 million, the trustees have contributed more than 30% of that. Clearly, an exceptional sign of their commitment and dedication to Tri-State University. For this, we all owe them a sincere debt of thanks and gratitude. As the numbers indicate, that I just mentioned, 12 million and so forth, there have been many who have helped support Tri-State University. And I would say that on behalf of the Board of Trustees, I would certainly like to thank all of those who have supported the school to this point and encourage you to continue that support. Sincerely, thank you. If I could take just a couple minutes here to share a recent experience that I've had. I should introduce my wife, Rose. Sorry about that, Rose. My wife, Rose, is with me today. But last weekend and an early part of this week, she and I had the opportunity of attending the National Conference of the Association of Governing Boards, held in the Opryland Hotel in Nashville, Tennessee. And for those of you who haven't been there, it is an awesome facility with nearly 3,000 rooms under one roof. As I talked with many of the trustees and presidents of many private and public institutions of higher learning, it became absolutely clear to me just where Tri-State stands among that group. And I would also tell you that it is refreshing to note that although we still have many, many challenges to address, we are in a good position relative to many of the other private colleges and universities. As noted in many of the presentations there at the conference, having a clear definition and mission and strategic plan are necessary elements of successful institutions today. We have all that important mission and plan at Tri-State. It clearly states our commitment to engineering, business, and teacher education, with engineering defined as our main emphasis with over 50% of our students enrolled in engineering. And as with half of our students in engineering programs, it is absolutely necessary that we provide a state-of-the-art engineering facility. That is why we're here today, to rededicate the Fawick Hall of Engineering. Again, I thank you for coming today and enjoy the rest of the rededication ceremonies. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wright. Our final remarks for this luncheon will be presented by President Reynolds, representing the university. So if I think he's talking right there, but he's on his way. I think it's your turn. And everybody saves you extra time.
Thank you, Tom. I think Tom and Gary said pretty much everything that can be said. I certainly can't top what Chuck came up with. What's interesting is I've been here a little over 5 years, and most of you out here have been here a lot longer than that. I'm sure none of you ever realized who Tom Fawick really was until today. And it's a little humbling when you walk by that building every day and say, Fawick Hall, who's Fawick? And to sit here and listen to this is one of the most brightest people we have in the United States in the past 50 or 60 years. It's really an exciting thing to see what we're going to do today. But I did want to thank Chuck and Donna again for coming. We had a hard time finding him. And if it wasn't for Chuck Taylor and Joe Tiagno, we're really, I guess, the super sleuths in this one. You know, they both Chuck and Joe are from Cleveland, and they rooted you out finally. It took a while, but we finally found them down in, Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. And they live in an Oregon part of the year, so it wasn't easy tracing him down. But we want to thank you for coming. And when I first talked to them, they weren't sure whether they could make it. This is the time when they're going back to Oregon, but they made a special effort and to be with us, and we certainly appreciate that too. Thank you very much. Gary mentioned, the trustees, and when I came here 5 years ago, we were talking a little bit about a master plan, and Dr. Gettig, Bill Gettig was chairman of the board then, and Paul Kalenbeck was vice chairman. And these two gentlemen were the ones that really pushed this master plan, of which Fawick Hall is part of. And I think if they hadn't pushed so hard at that time, I'm not sure we'd be where we are today. Because some of us sat there, and probably many of us said, we can't raise this kind of money, and where are we going to get the money? And Fawick Hall is good enough. It's good enough for these guys. 30 years ago, 20 years ago, why do we need to do something? And there was a push for a new building. Remember that, Bill? Very, very hard push. Not from the engineering faculty, of course, but from some local community people, I think they were. Anyhow, ultimately we decided that we just had to renovate the Fawick Hall. And I think when you go over there today, you'll see it certainly wasn't a mistake. The worst part about it is Tom Henneke and I were talking, and 2 years from now when the students come in here, you know what they're going to be saying, when are you guys going to fix this building? And the seniors and juniors now, the ones that have been here a couple of years, really appreciate what they have. And I think the faculty, engineering faculty, does it as well. As you saw, Martha Conrad just came in. I'm not going to let you off the hook that easy, Martha. When you come in late, then you have to be noticed. But when you do go over there, for those of you that haven't been around Tri-State for a while, you'll see that there's a Conrad addition, Howard Conrad addition, on the west side of the building, basically the chemical engineering, right, John? Which was dedicated, it's before my time, but when was it, Martha? What, 1970 something, or 80s? It's 15 or 20 years ago, but Martha was very generous, and that whole section of chemical engineering is a result of a donation of the Conrads. So when you go over there, take a look at that too. I did want to recognize one other person. Tom said that being I get up here last, I was limited to 5 minutes. I said, that's just what the program says. But Tom Enneking did a lot of work in this building. He was kind of our liaison or the grunt on the building, and it wasn't a whole lot of fun, I'm sure, trying to convince engineers that they didn't need, a 600 square foot office each, that maybe 150 square foot would be enough, and they didn't need mahogany furniture or this or that. And being he's one of them, it was not probably an easy task for him. He took a lot of slings, I'm sure, from some of his colleagues that he's worked with for the last 15 years. But he did a great job, and it wasn't easy. When you're trying to please with 20-some faculty over there and the rest of us in administration and the board saying we've got to hold the line on this dollar amount. And I think we set it at you remember Larry, 4.3 million, 4.5, the original budget, and we came in pretty close, probably ended up about 7 or 8, and then some equipment. So Tom Ermsher is here. Tom, where are you at? There he is. Tom is, and Steve Goodman's one of his right-hand men there. Ermsher Corporation is the one that were the general contractors of the building and did a great job. They've done another building here on campus for us. So I wanted to thank Tom and the physical plant people or housekeepers. I don't see any of them here, but they also played a big part in this. They moved the furniture out, moved it downtown, moved it back, moved it again, and keep cleaning it. And when you go over there today, you'll see, and I don't think it's just for today, but one or two of the housekeepers, the males over in Fawick Hall, you'll see where there's a tie. And that's, I think, what he thinks about Fawick Hall now. He's very proud of it. The housekeeping staff is, and they really do a good job with it. But I'd also, before I close, like to thank the engineering faculty for their patience and perseverance. They were the last ones pretty much on campus to get a building renovated, I believe, right, Bob? You guys waited a long, long time. A lot of our engineering faculty have been here 15, 20, 25, I think one or two of them about 30 years. And they lived through some tough times as far as facilities, and so did the students. And I think finally they feel they received a reward. And I know all of them, when I speak for them, when I tell the trustees and the rest of you how much we appreciate what you've done. And I don't know, Gary, not that I wasn't listening, Gary, I don't know if you said, but of the amount that I was talking to Marley, that's why, of the $12 or $13 million that we've raised on this campaign, is a $14 million campaign. I think we have about $12.5 million raised. Of that $12 million, approximately 25 to 30% has been donated by the trustees, and that's a lot of money for not very many people. So we really appreciate that. Those of you that are here today, many of them aren't. We couldn't have done it without you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, President Reynolds. I think he really wants to be an engineer. I think the worst part about it, some people have asked me, what's the worst part about the building? And I said, well, the worst part is my office isn't there anymore. That's what I think is the worst part. This basically wraps up this luncheon dedication ceremony here. I'd like to thank all of you again for your attendance and your attention to our speakers. We'll be moving from here to continue the celebration. We'll be moving from here to Fawick in the Sponsel Tower area for the ribbon cutting ceremony. Robin has asked me to say there's transportation over here on the east side of the building. If anybody needs any transportation back up to the other end of the campus for the ribbon cutting ceremony. So thanks again for being here, and we'll see you all up there.
Oh, likewise. Thank you very much.
I hope you get back to the building and a chance to get over. She must not have had something signed for payroll or something.
Yeah, I saw that.
guys. Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice meeting you too.
Okay, good luck.
Thank you. Now, do you need any help?
All right, I'll send you an email. When I look at the stats
I'm supposed to video over there, and if you could, you turn this off just a second. Put it on pause.
He's trying to get someone not to tell the truth. Well, gee, is that all we're concerned about? We can go home.
That is just something.
It's a rare name.
But it's neat. You know, one of the things people My problem with I'm a non-smoker. And I agree that smoking causes many problems. People still have the option of smoking or not. If it no, they don't. Not legally. Not legally. Not legally. I just don't understand the government. I just don't understand the government. There's millions of our tax dollars give it to the tobacco farmers to encourage them to regulate. But actually, well, I'm a diet conservative.
Can you hear me out there? How about you, Martha? It's all right? Yeah, why don't you people, this isn't class, you can come, you don't have to sit in the back row, you can come on up a ways. Either church or a classroom. Bill Myers is all the way back. If his students did that to him in class, he'd really raise Cain. But he's right back there in the back row. Chuck, come on up here, will you? I think we're about ready to, I'm probably on the wrong side, but Glenn and I are usually on the wrong side. Glenn, you have to stay back here for a while. Yeah, would you please? Watch out, they're not blunt. They've got points. We wanted to get some people up here before we get going. I think most of them are up here. Why don't, who are we missing? See, Gary, are you up here? Tom, you're here? Dolores, are you here? Dave, are you here? How about Al Guilford? Where's Al? Al's here. One thing, those of you that don't know, every once in a while I get off the track a little bit, not very often. But Al Guilford there, those of you that don't know Al graduated in what, Al, 57? 54. I was giving you a break there. He graduated, he's from Angola, graduated from Tri-State in 54, and has taught here since what year? Started teaching here in 57, civil engineering. So if anybody could tell you the history of this building, probably Al could tell you better than anyone. But I'm not going to give him a chance to talk. John, are you here? Wagner? Roger, where are you? Oh, you guys are over on one side. Al and Ed are over there? Okay. We try to keep the engineers on one side, and then us real people over here on the other side. And Glenn and I get way back here. So how about you? Glenn and I were just talking about it. We didn't know if you were a real person or not anyhow. Isn't that what you said, Glenn? How about Student Senate President? Is he here? There he is, okay. Bill Stockberger representing the alumni. Is Bill here?
Right there, behind Gary.
Oh, there he is. Glenn's here and Chuck's here. You know, we've got a little bit of room here. I'd like to get the other trustees up here if we could. I know Bill's out there and Larry's out there and Earl. Come on, you guys, get up here. Don't be... Who else? Richard, where are you at? Chuck is... What happened to Chuck? No, the other Chuck, Chuck Taylor. Where are you at, Chuck?
Right here.
Who else have we got? Is there someone else here, Gary? Any other trustee? Pardon me? Okay. Student Senate President's moving with the real people, he said. He must be a business student like the rest of us, right? Martha, come on. You get up here with us. Dave, help her up here. Get her chair up. Come on.
Well, we need a token then, okay?
Yeah, bring right up here with me. The good-looking people sit right up front here. Right here, Martha. No, that's all right. You can sit. Okay, we got everyone up here? Well, I think everything has been said that needs to be said, even though I could say some other things. You don't think so, Dave? Glenn and I have been arguing who's going to do the blessing, and we finally had a match for it, and Glenn won. So I'm going to let him do that right now. Glenn?
Our gracious Heavenly Father, we are assembled here this day to recognize one who has done so much for this university. But if we stop for a moment and think back over the years, there have been many, many people that have done much for this institution. And we just pray that this dedication today, or rededication, will be a challenge to those who come in the future under the administrative staff here to keep moving ahead. We can't move ahead and forget what has been behind us. When we forget those who started this institution and think that we begun it, then we're in trouble. We just thank you for everyone that's had a part in this from the very beginning up to this very moment, and we thank you for it in our precious Lord's name. Amen.
Thank you, Glenn. Before we get to the official dedication, I would like to just mention that following this, we're going to have a dedication, a naming opportunity dedication for Bob and Mary Taylor. And John, where's John Dyes? Turner, I'm sorry. Bob and Mary Turner. Where's it going to be? Sponsel Tower. Bob and Mary were the individuals that did all of the windows for this building, and there are a lot of them. Bob Caldy's asked me originally, are there 20 or 25? I told him I think 35, Bob. And anyhow, after he came up here and counted. But anyhow, we're going to do that inside, and following that and the dedication, there's going to be open houses, John, in all of the departments. So you're all welcome to take a walk through. If you haven't been through, you're going to really be surprised. Those of you that have been here before, it's really something. So at this time, again, I would like to thank all of you for coming and just say on behalf of the faculty and staff that we appreciate all of you that have been involved in this project and the master plan in total for your assistance. If it wasn't for many of the people standing here today, we wouldn't be here and we wouldn't have this building. So again, we appreciate it very much. You just want to talk. Okay, we're going to cut the ribbon, Chuck. I'm going to let you cut it, and then we'll do it at the same time. What we'll do when we finish is try to cut some pieces off here for anybody that may want a piece of the ribbon, okay?
I just wanted to say that I recognize that this project took vision and creativity and determination, and those are things that Thomas L. Fawick was all about. So good luck and much success. Thank you.
All right. Let me for you the first to slice your piece. Thank you. There you go, sir.
John, it doesn't look like I'm attending anything, so I thought I'd just walk in front of
When can we go in and say hello to Mr. Humphreys?
Yeah. And some of the other boys.
He was such a grouch anyway.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, I'm one of the few guys around here who knows it. Ralph Martin knows it. Oh, did you know Ralph Martin right there in the lake?
I played John Love's Mirror at the Civic Theater.
Mary Lou, yeah. 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 Yeah, she's in, I'm not sure she was around
Yeah, your week is coming.
I didn't know a thing about it. First time in my life.
Remember the older guys down here, Mark? Guy with a big scar on his head? He falls down a lot.
I run into the door. Earlier, the tree limb.
How are you changing, Paul? I don't think I'm supposed to. We're gonna get back in the audience. First I'm gonna get a drink.
We're gonna get Bob and Mary over here.
I know if you Steve.
You guys, blocking the entrance to the men's room, Mary. They've been trying to get in there all this while.
Thank you, Mary, for moving.
Nick has been, I think she's gonna move pretty soon. You guys can come on up a little closer if you want. You're fine. Then you want to get any closer, you can come up here. Well, no, I guess you can't. I guess you have to stay where you are. Can you get everybody in?
Yes, I've got the three of you. If anybody moves, I can't, and I've got it back as far as I can go, so.
Okay, are we all ready here? To hear some more talk? Right?
Hi, John.
No, I'm ready. No, this time we would like to dedicate, I guess you'd say dedicate, the windows to the Thomas Fawick building here. And on behalf of, because of Bob and Mary, the windows were a big issue with us because they were much more expensive than what we thought. And that's why I told them they were only 20. They really are, how many, Bob, like 140 or something?
John, let me remind you, we're 157.
There were several more than
Someone asked me if I could remember, and I said, yes, my checkbook.
You could remember. It would have been good if there were only 20. Yeah, the first time I met Bob was, I think, about 4 years ago, Bob and Mary. I talked to him on the phone. I think Gordon Leffingwell put me in touch with him about a year after I was here. And I believe it was the Dave and I came over, or did I come over, Dave Ballinger and I? We came over, went over to Columbus. They live right outside of Columbus, and Reynoldsburg, or right near, just east of, near Reynoldsburg, out there on Highway 70, and I remember Reynoldsburg, that's easy. My age, you start forgetting.
John, it was, he's the one that got lost, not you.
Dave?
Yeah, Dave got lost.
That's what I told you, Bob. But Bob was a tough nut to deal with, wasn't he, Dave? He asked a lot of hard questions. You know, where are you guys going? I know where you've been the last few years, and you know, I'm willing to get back on board if you guys are serious. We assured him we were. He said that it didn't really look like it, but he gave us a shot anyhow. And I think it took 6 or 8 months. We talked to Bob about possibly coming on the board of trustees, and he finally agreed. And since that time, I think Bob and Mary have been, you know, extremely generous to Tri-State. And he's 1941, isn't it, Bob? Graduate, Arrow graduate. So he can tell you himself, but he tells me he like made the blocks or bricks for this building. But anyhow, at this time, we'd like to unveil here a plaque that will be mounting somewhere. I'm not sure, John, exactly where, but we thought probably in this area of the building, being it's for the windows, which are, you know, throughout the entire building. So we thought we would try to mount it in here, in this main entrance, Bob. But on behalf of the university, I'd like to thank both of you for your generosity and your interest in Tri-State. And also, we're going to let them have this throw. Mary was asking me why didn't I iron it before I brought it out of it, because it was a bit wrinkled. But we're going to have Mary. She says what she thinks too. Not just Bob. I mean,
Well, thank you for this.
and this. Bob and Mary said Tri-State University on the top of Robert E. and Mary E. Turner, windows of Thomas L. Fawick Hall of Engineering. three things have made my life what it is. My father, Tri-State, and a right girl. R. Turner, AE 41, dedicated April 24, 1998. I told Bob, no kiss for him.
Well, John, I want to say on behalf of Mary and I, what an honor and privilege it is to be a trustee. And I've always associated in my mind the word of honor with a sense of responsibility. And it's very satisfying to me and to Mary to be able to give something back to the university after really a splendid life. And I will always remember the individual counseling and help that I received here. So thank you all.
Thank you. We have a few minutes if you'd like to talk with Bob and Mary or take a look at this. This is a very beautiful plaque. It's heavy though. If you go to lift it, be careful. Show Martha.
I think there are more than a number of these.
Yeah, I thought that's
Okay, it's on the first floor downstairs. I think it's in that section, the middle, that section on the bottom. You'll see what you'll start to gather. It's called this is where the mechanical lamps are. And the SEM, that's in that section. Yeah, on the bottom over there.
Yes, actually,
yeah, that's a 230.
She's got it. Somebody gets we got mine. Well, the truth of the matter was I was visiting my dad. He was really on his deathbed. He was passing away. He was in D.C. And my enemies and it was sort of and somebody said to their secretary, well, I'm going to write this guy, you know. So she was dialing all over the country. And I picked up the phone and said, well, I'm so
Look at open the elevator door and leave it on lock so you can get back in.
Just about the time I was thinking of doing that, the smoke went out. Yeah, and so I thought, I've got to really go up alone. But I've got it. It's that as far as we go. And John's thinking about it. If there was another question that had to be in the picture, so we always had to stop the elevator.
Can you move this out of the way so they can get her on the elevator?
Sure.
Did I come on?
She's half the money here. She's our money fighter.
We got everyone now? Wait. Veronica wants to do a picture. Oh. You want to see it?
Put your head in front of that.
Between Roger and Paul.
From an engineering standpoint, that's not possible.
The hole's got to start deteriorating. I hope we don't have many more of this to do, Veronica. Can you get them all up? And the university wouldn't have this equipment if it wasn't for the Foundry Education Foundation and the Moser Foundation that funded this. I don't know that much about electron microscopes, I invented it.
Oh my God.
So I'll let Roger or Paul or someone say something about that. But I would just like on behalf of the university to express our appreciation to the DF. And there's no one here representing the Moser Trust, which is a trust out of Santa Barbara, California. One of our trustees, Cliff Swanson, is also a graduate. 1931. Anyhow, 1931 graduate, Tri-State. Cliff was instrumental in getting this Moser Foundation to partially fund this. So we really appreciate it.
Thank you for the opportunity. It's a great piece of equipment.
That's what it does.
Okay. Well, basically, the electron microscope allows you to look at things on a much smaller scale. And much of what manufacturing processes and materials is about is identifying the relationship between process or among process structure and metals. And we can look at the structure of materials on a much smaller scale because I always tell my metallurgy students, there are a lot of rules in metallurgy which tell you basically that when it comes to structure, smaller is better. It makes it stronger, and so don't go into teaching metallurgy. That's, yeah, stronger is better, or smaller is better, stronger is better. And so we're able to look at fracture surfaces, things that require high depth of field, and high magnification. By high magnification, I mean in the range of 5,000 to 100,000 magnification. And of course, we can look at things that have our fracture surfaces and tell us a little bit about how something failed. At low magnification, we couldn't do it like microscopy because the surface has texture. That's about all I want to say about that. But I would like to say also that with regard to the FEF Capital Industrial Advisory Board, one fellow that couldn't be here this afternoon played a significant role, I think, in assembling the funding that we got from various metal casting organizations cited here. It was Larry Donay of Alchem Aluminum, who's been working on our industrial advisory board for, well, since I've been here, for the whole 5 years I've been here. And we would appreciate his effort, Paul's effort, kind of support we have from our industrial advisory board is the envy of a lot of the other FES schools. That's all.
Very selfish, that's why we do it. We're looking for graduates.
Well, Well, you know, one thing, 5 years ago when Vaughn came here, the foundry program, when I came, Vaughn came to St. United, I think was pretty much defunct as far as I know. And I think it had a few minor problems with FEF in the past.
We get around the corner, we'll talk about that.
But Vaughn has done a great job putting this program back together with the help of FEF. I think we've got another plaque around the corner here I want to talk about.
Yes, thank you. We'll move around.
And the individual that really was instrumental in doing the other part of the Moser part was Dr. Tisha Dolores. Does all of our grant, not all, but most of our grant work, and she did a great job with that, convincing Moser Trust Fund to support stuff like Conrad. So I appreciate it.
Partial funding through National Science Foundation.
And we have to point that out, that Dr. Tischner is sort of the person that I go to for guidance with regard to NSF, because she knows how that system works and what one needs to do to properly. Thank you very much.
Yeah, if we can kind of go around this plaque out here.
Shall I lead off? Go ahead. Okay. Well, when I first came here to Tri-State University, Tri-State, as Dr. Reynolds mentioned, had been in a little bit of trouble with FEF. And so we needed some help to reestablish our Foundry Education Foundation program here. And Bob Reisman was on the first visiting team that came for our initial reaccreditation visit, and at that time he was on the vice president ladder for FEF, that he would be president in 96, 97, 96.
Starting this time in 96 through this time in 96.
Right, so it had been starting at this time of year in 96. And Bob Reisman had worked at Auburn Foundry just down the road here in Auburn for a number of years, and as a manager. He knew the value of Tri-State University. And so he basically stood up for us with the board of FEF and said, I think these guys can do it. They can bring the program back, give them a chance. And unfortunately, one of the engineering education as well as the foundry industry, I think, lost a good friend when he passed away suddenly, just a matter of a couple of months after a brain tumor was discovered. We lost him. But he has been instrumental in bringing our program back, getting our establishment with the foundry industry, and the foundry industry has been a strong supporter of our program in terms of equipment dollars, scholarships for students, help with student placement, and that sort of thing. And very key, very good quality engineering jobs that have given some of the young people a huge start. Paul, you want to continue on?
Back in the mid-'80s, Bob Reisman succeeded me as education chairman of the local American Foundryman Society chapter. And at that point in time, we both agreed there were some serious problems here with the program at Tri-State. It was not a surprise to us when they lost the FEF accreditation. And I'm going to go a little farther than Dr. Richards did in his praise of what's going on here. I think it started with a gentleman coming into the administration here, a guy by the name of John Reynolds, and his commitment to the School of Engineering. I think that was the first step. Von Richards and his dedication to the students. Those of us in local industry, when we saw what was going on here, kind of twisted our arms and come back and get involved again. And when Bob Reisman came up for that first visit, he looked around the facilities and he said, Paul, quite honestly, they don't measure up to an FEF school. But I've listened to what Dr. Reynolds said, I've listened to what Von Richards said, I've listened to what you in the local industry said, and we're going to recommend you for a conditional probationary affiliation for 3 years. The rest is history. A year and a half back, they came back here as a group, and the Board of Trustees had their annual meeting here. At that point, we lost the term conditional probationary. We're
affiliates. And quite honestly, if the trustees were not having their meeting up in Windsor right now, I think several of them would be here today. Dr. Reynolds, thank you very much for the cooperation, the enthusiasm that you put into it. Dr. Richards, thank you very much on behalf of the industry. Like I said, we're very selfish. We're doing this because we're looking for graduates. We've already got several of them working in our facilities that are coming in and making a contribution now. Bob said up front, this does not measure up to an FBF school. But as the plaque says, his vision got us the probationary accreditation. And buddy, thank you. Thank you.
You want to get some of your folks in here and get some pictures?
Yeah. Sure.
Okay.
You want
Here in the
you want one,
Charles Jonathan.
Yeah.
Just a second here.
Yeah, it says just a second. Get out of the way. Just one sense.
Right.
Is it booked on that area?
Where do you shop?
I've got papers that say that's illegal. Not allowed to be on film.
Excuses. Can we get through? You guys done with the second one, right? Yep. Got done about